constitutional rights for families to home educate. And the second focus is to provide support for families, which we do through a variety of regional and specialized events, like a high school symposium, a commencement service for graduates, etc.
And I'm Shelley Daub. I currently serve as the Director of Recruiting for Dual Enrollment and College Credit Plus at Cedarville University. I have also homeschooled all 5 of my sons who are now grown, and they all participated in College Credit Plus or dual enrollment. So I've sat on both sides of the desk, and I hope I can answer your questions today.
So if you didn't catch the drift, our main focus of our live stream today is going to be talking about dual enrollment, which means that a high school student can take college courses while they're still in high school and receive dual credit. But our specific emphasis today is on College Credit Plus, because we're speaking specifically to high school families in the state of Ohio. So that is going to be like the goal for our conversation today. But in general, if you have any questions about College Credit Plus, we have an email that is going to be ccp@cedarville.edu. So CCP stands for College Credit Plus. So if you have any specific questions throughout our live stream related to your child and their situation specifically, please email that email address. But overall, we have a short presentation just about all the different steps that you have to go through in order to qualify for this program. But as we're speaking and going through our presentation, we would love for you to ask your questions in the chat, whether you're viewing on Facebook or on YouTube. And at the end of their presentation, we're going to go through and discuss all of those questions with you live. So we encourage you to ask your questions broadly in the comment section. So thank you for joining us. In case you didn't know already, this is Cedarville University's campus. So a little bit about Cedarville is that we are an accredited Christ-centered college in Southwest Ohio. We have over 175 programs of study. We are home to 5,000 undergraduate and graduate students. And we are recognized nationally for our Christ-centered community and our academic rigor. Lastly, if you have any more questions or if you would like more information about Cedarville University specifically, we encourage you to visit Cedarville.edu. So, ladies, Melanie, can you tell us a little bit about your role as CHIO's legislative liaison? What does that entail?
Well, my role specifically is as the legislative liaison. So I will look at legislation that's pending. We will look at concepts that maybe need to be tweaked in statute. For example, in 2015, we established a statute that requires the home education parent-issued diploma to be legally recognized for any purpose, whether it's post-secondary training, getting into the military, or employment opportunities or graduate work. There was another instance that we had an opportunity to change statutes this past year, and we completely revamped by removing the regulations that had been in place in the Ohio Administrative Code and instilling a statute that would define home education in state law at a more permanent, simplified section of law. So that was all done as a part of the role that I play with CHIO on the legislative side. And then we have a board of directors and we plan events throughout the year that would be helpful to homeschool families. We do not serve as a local support group. We can't. We're a statewide organization. So we encourage families to be involved locally with local support groups. But we can provide support to families like the event that I mentioned a few minutes ago, the high school symposium, the college and career fair that will be on April 20th. We have a commencement service at Mount Vernon University, Nazarene University. That is the only event we require membership. Anything else we do statewide, you can participate as a member or a non-member. But there is a variety. And I would encourage you to check the website, chiohome.org, to get a sense of what we have available to families.
Awesome. And what about you, Shelley? Can you tell us a little bit about your role here at Cedarville?
Yeah, recruiter is such a intimidating word, I think, sometimes. Basically, as a recruiter here at Cedarville, I work on our marketing. I go to homeschool conventions and talk to families. Also, when your student applies and you submit your transcript to Cedarville for admission, I review those transcripts and I work with families just to make sure that they can understand the steps and walk through the admission process as easily and simply as possible.
Perfect. So the next question is also for you. Today we're talking about College Credit Plus. So what is that?
We are. So this is the verbiage from the College Credit Plus website. College Credit Plus is a taxpayer-funded program that allows eligible Ohio students to take allowable college courses at participating colleges for dual credit for free. And that's a lot of words.
Yes, it is.
So if we want to break those down a little bit, let's go ahead and maybe have Melanie talk a little bit, oops, I switched slides too soon, about the taxpayer-funded program portion of this.
So what happens is there are ceiling amounts that the state will fund per credit hour for the college or university. And then when the hours are approved, for example, if you're approved for 3 hours of course credit, then you would get that ceiling amount times 3. Secondly, there's a aggregate amount that is funded through the state budget. We have a biennial budget, so it's a 2-year budget cycle. Currently, we are under what was passed through House Bill 33 last summer. And so the current amount for the total for home educating families would be $6 million over the 2 years, or $3 million per year. So it's just that you go through the application process. When the money runs out, the money runs out. And they will, I think if I'm not mistaken, they will prioritize the disbursement of the awarding of the dollars to students by grade level or by level of participation. So if you apply for 24 hours of coursework, that does not mean you're going to get 24 hours of funding. You will be funded and approved, and you will know what your approval amount of coursework is at the time you're enrolling for classes, so you will know what you're applying for.
Right, right. So families apply for an amount of funding. They're granted an amount of funding. And I think one key thing that Melanie and I talked about earlier is that when you apply, you have to apply for funding as a homeschool family or as a private school family. So if you are one of those families who is homeschooling your student, but they're maybe also taking some classes at a local private school, Melanie, how can a family know if they're homeschooled or private schooled?
That's a very important distinction with the new statute that we have, which is Revised Code 3321.042. It's a one-page simplified explanation and law of what home education is. So the home educating family is notifying the school district that they're going to provide coursework at a minimum of the English language arts, the mathematics, science, history, government, and social studies. You can provide coursework beyond those 6 areas. But when you are not considered home educating if you are enrolled full-time in a private school or public school, it doesn't make sense. But you can enroll part-time in a private school to take a course or two, but you are still considered home education. So the transcript that you would prepare for College Credit Plus must be prepared and provided by the parent, not the non-public school.
Right, and we'll talk about transcripts a little more in depth in a minute.
Right.
But again, it's important to know that when you apply as a homeschool funded student or a private school funded student, and you can't switch back and forth between those funding pots.
There are funding streams in the state budget, what they call general revenue fund, allocated line item numbers. And home educated families have a set line item number within the state's foundation funding. Side note on why that's important is in a budget cycle, any governor who's in office at any given budget cycle has the power to line item veto. There is no governor that's going to line item veto the entire foundation funding section. Yep. So they've buried the College Credit Plus funding for home educated students in under the foundation monies that are allocated for all of the public school funding and private school funding.
And this, Sarah, is why we have Melanie join us, because she remembers bill numbers and all of the details. So that's the funding portion. The second line of our slide says that it allows eligible Ohio students. So let's look at the next slide and talk a little bit about what it means to be eligible for College Credit Plus funding. These are the 4 different ways that a student can prove that they're eligible for College Credit Plus funding. And I put these in the order that they are in state statute, not necessarily the order in which most people approach this. So the first bullet there is test scores that meet statewide standards. Those are college level, college entrance exams. So the SAT, ACT, AccuPlacer, and a whole bunch of other tests that most of us have never heard of.
And they would have to get a non-remedial score.
That's right. There's a minimum score required by the state of Ohio, and we have those posted on our website. The second way that a student can qualify is with a high school GPA of at least 3.0. This is the thing that we see most often, and it does confuse some homeschool families because the state of Ohio allows Ohio residents enrolled in Ohio schools who are in 7th through 12th grade to participate. So the question becomes, how does a 7th grade student have a high school GPA? And that's where the test scores come in, because most 7th grade students do not yet have a high school GPA or a high school transcript. So those students submit their middle school grade report plus test scores in order to be eligible for College Credit Plus funding. The last 2 ways, or the last 2 bullet points here, also include something called relevant coursework. We don't see that a lot, but it could mean that a student applies with a slightly lower GPA to a college, and the college accepts them if they also have a grade of A or B in, say, an English or math course. Not all colleges allow that. The college's admission criteria can be different than the CCP eligibility criteria. So what we're talking about right here is the CCP eligibility criteria. I'm going to go on just a little bit and talk a little bit more about test scores, because families were so excited in 2020, not about COVID, but about the fact that schools became test optional and students don't like taking those tests. So what does it mean to be test optional? Well, test optional does not mean test blind. If a school, a college, or a university says that they are test optional for admission, it means that you don't have to submit test scores, but if you do, we will look at them and consider them in the admission decision. It also means that if your transcript doesn't meet the criteria for admission, that we can request test scores to strengthen your application. It also means that test scores may be required in order for you to enroll in certain courses. So most colleges and universities, at least in the state of Ohio, who participate in CCP have something called proficiency requirements. And that's typically proven with a test score and says that a student is ready for college level English or math. I think I mentioned earlier the most common tests. Would you agree that ACT,
SAT,
and the AccuPlacer?
and AccuPlacer, and there's a new test coming onto the market nationally. It's the
Is it the CTL?
yeah, CLT.
CLT.
Yeah, classic learning test.
Yes, that's a classic learning test, and Cedarville accepts that for admission, but it is not considered a test that CCP, it's not part of the CCP statewide standards.
Right, and for families who are home educating who have been used to doing norm referenced assessments, the CLT is a norm referenced assessment. They are nationally normed.
And by norm referenced assessment, you're talking about Iowa tests.
Like the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, the California Achievement Test, Terra Nova, some of those.
Yeah. So, but those tests are also not those are not college entrance exams.
Exactly.
So those are not
Right.
going to count for admission to a college.
Right.
And then I also wanted to say that the AccuPlacer, there are many variations of the AccuPlacer. So if you take the AccuPlacer exam at College A, those may or may not be the AccuPlacer exams that are needed for entrance to College B. So just be sure you're asking good questions of colleges about which exams they require. Okay? And then finally, the other, and I know I feel like I'm talking a lot, Sarah.
This is your presentation, Kelly.
I wanted to talk about transcripts, and I've already mentioned that if your student's in middle school, they may not have a transcript. However, if your student is in middle school and they've already started taking some high school level courses, maybe they took Algebra 1 in 8th grade, if that is a high school level course that is going to be counted towards high school graduation, then you should go ahead and start their high school transcript. Now, I know transcripts are kind of scary for families, but there
they're
are
important.
great resources out
Yes.
there.
So if you're familiar with Homeschool Legal Defense Association, for example, they provide a transcript service. There are transcript services out in the universe that you can utilize, but I want to stress that transcripts are very important, because even if you're thinking, well, I'm not sure if my student's going to actually go through the college track when they finish home educating, maybe they will change their mind and go into a trade or go straight to employment or start their own business. We don't have any way of predicting where that student as an adult would be 10 years from now. So if they choose 10, 15 years from now to go back to college, go back to a university, and the universities are requiring transcripts, you do a disservice to your student if you don't prepare those transcripts at the time they're going through high school, so they have them. And we also have had situations, unfortunately, where parents have passed away. So you don't know what the future holds, so it's a great idea to safeguard that future for your student by preparing those transcripts, because they are a legal document, and that carries weight in a variety of processes that your child would engage with as an adult.
Right. And I want to pick up on the fact that you mentioned this is a legal document. It's an official document. And so the items, the bullet points here on the screen are some of the areas that we see where homeschool families struggle a little bit with creating a transcript. Graduation date may be the biggest thing that homeschool families struggle with, because they're not sure when they're going to graduate their student, or their student may graduate early. My recommendation from the perspective of college recruiting is that you use the graduation date that would be 12 years of school beyond when your student started first grade. That's typically when they're 18 years old. If you need to graduate them early, you can always move their graduation date earlier. Once you've submitted a transcript to a college, it's much harder to move their graduation date later, because moving a graduation date later typically indicates that the student's not meeting graduation requirements, not that you just wanted to add an extra year of school.
Right.
Okay?
And in Ohio, we have the parent-issued diploma protection, so that the parent is deciding what that date is on the diploma, not any other entity except the parent. So that's protected.
That's great. That's great. So some of the other items here are just things that you may want to Google. We're not going to talk through all of them, but you can simply Google how to calculate a GPA. We recommend precise course titles. Often I see a course title like Math 9. That doesn't tell a college anything about what that math course was about. We often see parents want to include percentages, so we know that it was a B, but it was an 89% B, and we really just want to see that letter grade. We often recommend that families provide credit for midterm grades, especially if your student is applying as a freshman in high school, and that's the only grade that we're going to see on their high school transcript. That's helpful to us. On your high school transcript, you need to include credit from any other sources. So a course taken for CCP credit must go on your high school transcript, and the grade must match the college transcript. Likewise, we talked about private schools earlier. If your student's taking some classes at the local public or private school, those courses belong on your homeschool transcript. Extracurricular activities belong on a resume, not on your transcript. And so that's a completely different document. And then we often see homeschool transcripts that aren't signed. This is a legal document, and so we really encourage you to include the parent's name, contact information, and a signature so that if the college has any questions, they can reach out to you for clarification.
Excellent. So my next question for you, either of you, would be, what do you mean by allowable college courses?
Well, I can easily answer what's not allowable. So a Bible course, for example, the courses have to be non-sectarian. So going to a Christian school, you would not be able to take a course in like an Old Testament survey course or something of that nature. It would have to be labeled more as a literature course for that. So they will not allow state funding for religious or Christ-centered. I shouldn't say Christ-centered because all your courses are Christ-centered, but for courses that are overtly Bible training, training for the pastorate, for example.
Right. There's actually on the College Credit Plus website an entire list of courses that are not allowable. We have a link to that on Cedarville's CCP page as well. You can get there. It's Cedarville.edu/CCP. Non-allowable courses include things like private lessons, private music lessons, one-on-one lessons, PE courses, study abroad. So there's just a list of things that aren't allowable. But what is allowable is typically those general education courses, technical courses. When a student begins with College Credit Plus, they have to take their first 15 credit hours in what are considered level 1 courses. Those are usually 1,000 or 100 level courses. After they've completed those 15 credit hours, then it opens up and lots of courses are available to your student.
So how can you know what is a participating college for CCP?
Well, all public universities are required to participate. It's the private universities and colleges that step into the CCP program as voluntarily. So you would, if you have a college university that you prefer, you just have to contact them and find out if they are participating in the College Credit Plus program. And it would not be available to out-of-state students, but out-of-state universities and colleges are eligible to participate.
I think there's a list of maybe 5 or 6 out-of-state colleges that actually do participate, and that list is on the CCP webpage through the Ohio Department of Education.
Okay. So can you explain more, what does dual credit mean?
Well, you gave a great introduction earlier, so I'll just follow up on that for anyone who joined late with us. Dual credit means that a student earns credit for a course, and that credit is, they earn credit at one institution and it actually applies towards 2. So that was a terrible explanation. Let me try again.
You can do this.
Yes, I can do this. So a student dual enrolls. That means they're enrolled in 2 different institutions, high school and college, at the same time. They're taking a college course and they're earning both college and high school credit. That is the definition of dual credit. Did I do better that time?
Good job. Good job.
Thanks.
We have to distinguish that home-educated families are not technically enrolled, but and even state law allows for the family to state whether or not they just want to take the college course for high school credit, or if they want to take the college course for just college credit, or if they want the dual credit.
This is true, but if you use CCP funding, it is a dual credit course. If you pay out of pocket on your own,
You can decide.
you can decide.
And I don't know of any family who would go through all of that trouble and not want it to be duly credited.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and as we talked earlier about courses that are not allowable, those Bible courses and things, you can pay for those courses. And so if your student maybe in the future were to attend a public high school and they wanted to take Cedarville's Bible course, they could pay for that, and then it would not be a dual credit course because the high school wouldn't count it.
The other important distinction for home educating families is the CCP funding, the actual dollars that are transferred from the state to the university can only cover tuition. The student's family would still be responsible for paying for textbooks and materials and fees, course fees.
Actually, if it's a CCP funded course, the university waives the course fees.
All of the universities or just Cedarville?
All of the universities waive the fees.
Fees, but not the textbook and not materials.
That's correct.
Okay.
But if you pay out of pocket, then the fees aren't waived either.
Right.
Yeah, perfect.
So that's a good question. We wanted to talk about what does it mean that the course is free? So there are
It's tuition.
There
free.
are some costs associated with it.
For homeschool families, the cost is your textbooks.
Okay.
But I think, you know, it is 2024 now, 2023, 2024. And many, many courses have online textbooks or options for you to purchase textbooks affordably. Some students get their textbooks through the library system, through OhioLink.
Another resource for helping to pay for textbooks is Ohio has a statute that provides a tax credit for monies that are spent by the family for textbooks for the home education experience. So if you're duly enrolled and that is a part of your home education experience, you can utilize that tax credit when you file your taxes. You just have to keep the receipts. It's not a large amount of money, but it helps. It's $250 per family, so that's a little bit that you could take advantage of.
Yeah.
Great.
So we've kind of covered CCP. So now let's talk about if a student meets the eligibility, how do they get started?
Great question. So to get started with CCP, the first step is that the student applies to a college or colleges. And I'm going to emphasize that again and say that the student applies to colleges, and the student uses their own email address and their own contact information because they are becoming a college student. And that can be a tricky thing because maybe your student doesn't have an email account yet. I would encourage you that before applying for colleges, you set those email accounts up, you teach your student good email management skills, and you just work with them because once they enroll in college, that will be their primary means of communication with their professors. So they apply to colleges, they can attend a CCP meeting, something like this. That's not required for homeschoolers. It is required for our public and private counterparts. And then once the student is admitted to Cedarville, the student meets with an academic advisor and they register for their Cedarville classes. That's the student side. For the parents, your job is to apply for funding. And so the application for funding will open on February 1st, and it will close on April 1st at 5 o'clock p.m. We may say that a couple of times today because that's super important. Once that funding application closes, it's closed until February 1st of the following year. So April 1st, 5 o'clock p.m., write it down. The parent's responsibility is also to track those CCP funding award hours, to add the CCP courses to the high school transcript, and to abide by CCP rules and regulations. You are the administrator of your homeschool, so you are also the administrator of those CCP funding dollars, and you are responsible for knowing all of the rules and regulations associated with that. An instance of that would be if your student were to drop too many courses or fail a course, you are the one who institutes CCP probation based upon state rules. And our advisors at Cedarville help students know that if a student were ever at risk of being on probation, we would notify them. But if a student's taking classes at more than one institution, we can't know that. It's the parent's responsibility.
All right, next question. So the student applies to colleges and the parent applies for funding. my question, which we want to reiterate, is when and how do parents apply for funding? So when we know that it opens on February 1st and closes on April 1st, where do they apply for funding?
Well, they have to establish what's called an OHID account, and that is just simply a mechanism for the state to transfer the funding from the state treasury to the university. So when you can open an OHID account any time of the year. It could be before February 1st, but you have to have that OHID account opened at the time you apply. And then you have certain documents that you have to submit. You have, as a home educating family, this is an odd year because the new statute went into effect the first week of October. So you had your letter of excusal from the beginning of the school year, then you have a letter of acknowledgement after October 3rd. So right now, most colleges and universities would accept, I think, either one of those documents from the superintendent to show that you are home educating. You also have to submit the letter of college admission. And if you apply to more than one college, you have to submit each of those letters for college admission. You have to provide a copy of the high school transcript, or if you're a returning student, a copy of the college transcript. So that's the mechanism that everything portals through, is that OHID account.
Once you establish your OHID account, it can take a few days before you get access to it, so keep that in mind. If you're planning to apply for funding on February 1st, you'll want to establish your OHID account a few days before that. The OHID account actually leads you into a lot of different things that you can pursue within that account. Thank you, Melanie. So only one of those things is that CCP funding application. So you'll have to look for the funding application, and the documents that Melanie mentioned are going to be uploaded in that OHID account. Some of them will also need to be provided to the colleges when you apply to them.
Right.
So if you haven't started your transcript yet, that's a good place to start today.
So my next question for you, Shelley, is what materials are needed for the Cedarville application?
Yeah, so let's talk through those real quick. So, of course, the application that the student fills out, and we really encourage the student to fill that out in part because they have a personal statement about their relationship with Jesus Christ. And so we want to hear from the student about their relationship with Jesus. The student will also provide, during the application process, contact information for a Christian leader. And then once the student has submitted the application, we will request a high school transcript from the homeschooled parent, and you'll be able to upload that, or it can be emailed as a PDF attachment to admiss@cedarville.edu. That's admiss@cedarville.edu. And also, when the student submits the application to Cedarville, an email will go to both the parent and the student requesting signatures on the state-mandated mature content permission slip. Now, Melanie's going to talk about that permission slip here in just a second and that mature content piece. But I want to mention that some students, in addition to the items I've mentioned, some students may also be asked to provide test scores, a transcript from a college if they've already taken a dual credit course, or if they're an international student, a language proficiency exam. So let's talk for a minute, Melanie, about that CCP mature content statement.
This statute was added to state law about 3 years ago. There were some families who came to legislators. Their students were minors, and most students participating in CCP at the high school level are under the age of 18. And Ohio has statutes in the criminal code that prohibit the pandering of sexually explicit or pornography material or pornography to minors. But in that statute in the criminal code, there is an exception made for education. So these families experienced a horrific experience at one of the state universities, and the material was grotesque. But they can't waive or go after the university and say you can't present that material. So what they have done in the course of those discussions and the legislative hearings to get the language that they were looking for was to provide a waiver, to provide an acknowledgement, so that it's the concept of informed consent. So every college, even a Christ-centered university like Cedarville, is required by state law to make the mature content statement available on their website and in their materials that are disseminated, that the subject matter of a course enrolled under College Credit Plus program may include mature subject matter or materials, including those of a graphic, explicit, violent, or sexual nature that will not be modified based on College Credit Plus enrollees' participation, regardless of where the instruction occurs. So even though that's not a concern in terms of course content with Cedarville, they are required to provide that statement, and parents and students are required to sign off on informed consent. What comes along with informed consent is the requirement that students be made aware of the course materials prior to enrolling, and allowance for withdrawal from a course, so that the student would be informed on when they can withdraw from a particular course based on that content without receiving a failing grade or negative implications on their transcripts.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, and so how would that affect students at Cedarville? Every course at Cedarville is taught through a biblical lens and a biblical worldview. Now, if you're studying politics or history or anthropology, you may find some mature topics, but those are all going to be discussed in light of the Word of God. We do allow students to see materials before they enroll in a course. All you have to do is go to our bookstore, click on the links, and see what books there are, and then you can explore those books, get them from the library or whatever is convenient and close for you. And then as far as withdrawing from a course, every college that participates in CCP allows students the first 15 days to look at the course materials and then decide if they want to drop. If the student drops by the 15th day of the semester, the course just disappears. It doesn't show up on their college transcript, the student isn't charged, so their CCP funding remains available to them, and the student can simply move on. But it is the student's responsibility during those first 15 days to review enough of the material in the syllabus to know if there is any content that concerns them.
Thanks, ladies, for that discussion. So my next question is, overall, we know February 1st and April 1st, but are there additional dates and deadlines that we need to be mindful of?
Well, after the April 1st application deadline, there is a set period of time that you will get your award letter. So
it typically arrives
the first week of May?
Yes, I think May 6th is the date for this year. It is 5 weeks from April 1st, so it fluxes by a day each year. But yeah, that's when you'll get your award letter. That award letter, the notification will go to the parent's email address, the one who submitted the OHID or started the OHID account. And then the parent will download that funding award letter, and the student will provide it to the college. Okay. Mm-hmm. Another important date would be for admissions. If your student needs a letter of acceptance to Cedarville by April 1st for the funding deadline, then we recommend that they apply and submit all supporting documents, including transcripts and test scores if needed, by March 15th.
Okay. All right, so that concludes what we specifically had prepared to discuss. So now, ladies, we're going to go into the comment section of YouTube and Facebook. So are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
We're ready.
You never know what someone's going to ask. So to begin, from the YouTube comment section, we are asking about a Becca Academy. So if a student is enrolled as a homeschool student in a Becca Academy, is that considered a private school if they're accredited through a Becca?
It actually makes no difference. The parent, if they have notified the district that they are home educating, the parent still has to prepare the transcript.
Okay.
If that's the backstory to that question, or the impetus for the question.
Well, and the tricky thing from a college admissions point of view is if when your student applies, they click the box that says they attend a BECA and not that they are homeschooled. So be sure when your student applies to the colleges that they just check the box that says I'm a homeschool student.
Yep. Even if they're using curriculum from a school.
That is right.
Or even if they have enrolled into a program with an out-of-state private school like a BECA, Bob Jones, there are a lot of programs out there across the country that homeschool parents want to take advantage of, but you are the definition of home education with regard to this new statute is that the statute says home education means the education of the child between the ages of 6 and 18 years of age that's directed by the child's parents. So the child can direct the parent can direct their child's education by providing an opportunity for them to learn through the ABECA Academy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they are still, once you notify the district and you are considered home educating, then this is the pot of money that you're going after with College Credit Plus, and you are considered the person that would be responsible for creating that transcript.
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, that's the answer. If you notified your public school district that you're homeschooling, then you're homeschooling and you're responsible for the transcript. It doesn't matter if your student is taking classes at 7 Star or ABECA or Bob Jones or any of those places. Mm-hmm. You're the homeschool.
Okay. Good answer. So the next one's kind of fun. Are 6th graders able to visit the school for a tour?
You know, we have.
That would be fun.
I know. Contact guest services at Cedarville and ask that question. I think what they'll tell you is there are lots of opportunities for students to experience campus, maybe without the stress or the pressure of a tour, mm-hmm. right? We have we have worship. We have WOW weekends. Students can come for
worship.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
weekend
Middle
of
school,
worship.
High school. Yep.
Yeah.
It's true.
So
next question. Can you do CCP courses online through Cedarville?
Yes, we didn't even say the word online. How remiss of me. Yes, indeed. Probably 95% of Cedarville's dual enrolled students are taking their courses online. Our courses are asynchronous, so that means there's no live lecture, no set time that you have to log in for your class. I tell students you can study when you want, where you want, as long as you turn your homework in on time. Just like homeschooling.
True. True. So the next one is a little bit more specific, but I think it's going to be broadly applicable. So my current 7th grader wants to take CCP, but he has not taken any high school level classes, and he has no transcript. Can I or should I still make a transcript for the middle school years and then have her take a test?
Well, let's talk about the admission piece first, right? So yes, if you believe your student is college ready, then it's not a transcript for middle school, that's a middle school grade report, and that is the title I would put at the top of the document, middle school grade report, and then your student can take the test. I would encourage you to consider whether your student would actually be ready for college level courses without having taken any high school level courses. And if you want to call Cedarville and have a conversation about it, I'd be happy to talk with you. You can reach the dual enrollment department at 937-766-3333.
Okay, perfect. Next one, do you offer admissions advising services to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row for transcripts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll take that one too.
You do.
So every college that participates in College Credit Plus has to offer advising to the students. Some do it well, others are just overwhelmed with students. The student advisor ratio is not fabulous. Cedarville has 3 dedicated advisors just for our dual enrollment population. 2 of them are homeschooled moms themselves who have already homeschooled through high school, and they do a fabulous job. Once your student narrows down what majors or even what general area they're interested in, like the humanities, then we can begin helping them choose the correct courses.
In addition to that, is there a service that could help them with forming their high school transcripts?
I would strongly recommend Homeschool Legal Defense Association's transcript service, and you would provide all of the detailed information to them, and they will help map out the document with you. So, but you do have to be a member of Homeschool Legal Defense Association to take advantage of that.
And I'm a more organic girl, so I would say you can go online and Google homeschool transcripts. You'll see lots of examples. Cedarville has a sample homeschool transcript on our homeschool webpage, which is Cedarville.edu/homeschool. And you can look at that sample transcript. I think because our transcript was also developed by homeschoolers for homeschoolers, we have a very simplified way for you to include those courses taken in 7th and 8th grade in the transcript.
I would also encourage you to consider coming to the high school symposium that CHIO is going to be offering on April 20th, because it will be a full day for parents from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. workshops on mapping out course content. We have a transcript clinic. We have someone coming in from the trades. Shelley will be a presenter from Cedarville. We have someone else coming in talking just about assessments, someone coming in from the military. We're going to be giving on-site ASFAB competency tests that day as well. And we have a track for teen students on study skills and the logic games that prepare you to take tests and to study and to be successful at the college level.
Excellent plug for CHIO.
There you
Good
go.
job. My next question is, are CCP courses transferable if the student decides to go to a different college than the one they took their CCP courses through?
That's a question for Shelley because I know that if you attend for example, a community school like Start State College as an associate degree community school, they have articulation agreements with universities so that what you take at that community school will transfer the credits to a different university. Does Cedarville have articulation agreements? Or?
Cedarville does not have articulation agreements. However, so I'm just going to explain that a little bit more. An articulation agreement means that if you earn a specific associate's degree from a specific community college, that you can transfer those credits to a specific 4-year university and transfer in as a junior and finish a specific degree program. I said specific a lot, right? It is a very specific sort of thing. Generally speaking, College Credit Plus courses are transferable from one university to another because all participating colleges are regionally accredited. But just because they transfer doesn't mean they're going to transfer the way you want them to transfer. So again, it is the responsibility of the parent and the student to contact the college that you think you will transfer the credits to and say, how will Psychology 1600 from Cedarville University transfer to your school?
Yep. So do your due diligence.
Do your due diligence.
Yep, yep.
It's like looking at curriculum at a homeschool fair. There's always more work to be done.
Yes. So just to clarify once again, CLT cannot be used for test scores. Is that true?
For college entrance. CLT is a great assessment that you can use as a snapshot to get an idea of how your child is doing with the basic math and language arts curricular areas. It's like taking a California Achievement Test or a Iowa Test of Basic Skills. It just gives you a snapshot that compares you to a normative sample nationally on the percentile ranks for grade or age levels, grade cohorts or age cohorts. So that it's just feedback. The CLT is tremendous feedback.
Well,
It's just not a college entrance exam.
Well, I'm going to say something different because Cedarville accepts the CLT.
Do they?
We will accept it for admission, but we cannot accept it for CCP eligibility. Keep in mind those are two different things. CCP eligibility does not allow for the CLT, but some colleges and universities, particularly private Christian colleges and universities, may allow the CLT for admission.
And I'm going to qualify what explanation I gave a second ago. Also, I know the state of Florida, statewide, is accepting at their universities the CLT.
It's an up-and-coming test.
Yes, yes. It's new on the market. It has a lot of promise, and we're going to have someone from CLT be one of our presenters at our high school symposium in April.
That's exciting. I didn't know that.
Yep.
So that was all YouTube questions, so we're really thankful for those. We're going to hop over to Facebook now and talk there. So the first question, Shelley, you can answer this one, is will this live feed be viewable later, or is it only available now?
We're going to post it on the website, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, it will be available later.
Yep. Okay, next one. Is the testing necessary for the application for CCP or the admission into the college of choice?
Testing. Yeah. See, I knew we would have a lot of questions about testing. Mm-hmm. Testing is only required for College Credit Plus or for admission to the university to Cedarville University if the student doesn't meet the transcript requirement. So if your student has a high school transcript with a GPA of 3.0 and they have completed at least one full semester of core coursework that counts towards graduation, like history, math, English, and social studies, science, history and social studies are in the same group. I'm going to say those again because I messed that up. At least one semester of credit in English, math, science, or social studies, then testing is not required for admission. It may still be required for your student to enroll in an English or mathematics course following admission.
Good clarification. Next, our local high school really pushes for Sinclair or Clark State classes. If I understand correctly, we just need to apply with Cedarville and get accepted and meet with an advisor?
And notify your high school guidance counselor. You do not have to ask permission from your high school guidance counselor to choose the college that you want to choose. You simply need to notify, your student needs to notify your high school guidance counselor that you've selected Cedarville for your College Credit Plus courses. And then your student will have the responsibility of working with the guidance counselor to choose courses that meet their graduation requirements.
And that's even for home educated students to work
Oh, I'm sorry, I flipped over to those public school students for just a second there.
Home educated students don't need to approach or use the public school guidance
That's
counselor.
right. Your guidance counselor is your mom. Talk to your mom.
I'm actually very encouraged that we have both homeschool families and public school families joining. So I have another public school question.
Okay.
Is the OHID account required for public school students?
It is not.
Oh, I thought it was.
Oh, it is not. That's a
Interesting.
great question. Public school students simply need to notify their high school guidance counselor and submit the intent to participate form. And your guidance counselor should have a copy of that for you. Just in case we have any private schooled students out there, you do have to use an OHID account and apply for funding, for private school funding. And you also have the responsibility of notifying your guidance counselor. In the public school setting, the books are paid for by the public school. In the private school setting, the books are paid for by the private school. And in the homeschool setting, the books are paid for by the homeschool. Mom and Dad, that's you.
And the reason for those distinctions is that there are separate funding streams for each category of enrollment, or for homeschool students who are not enrolled.
Right. And I believe the way the statute is written, it says the school will provide the books.
A Okay, this is a fun question, which is encouraging to me because it shows that you understand a little bit about our classes that are offered. But does CCP award cover summer, fall, and spring, or is it only fall, spring, and summer? I'm trying to understand if summer classes would be the beginning or the end of the award period.
That's such a fabulous question. So think of it this way. When May comes and this school year ends, CCP funding ends for this year. So CCP funding is summer, fall, spring.
Perfect. Good job. Okay, so we don't homeschool anymore. So, one second. We don't homeschool anymore. Or is this applicable for Christian school kids as well? That's a private school question.
Yes, it is applicable for private school students as well. Again, you still have to apply for CCP funding as a private school student, and you need to notify your private school and work with your guidance counselor there. Cedarville also is offering, the words are escaping me, Christian school partnerships with a select number of larger Christian schools. So some Christian schools are offering Cedarville classes on their campus this year.
Yes, accurate.
It's a new thing.
Mm-hmm. All right, somebody apologized and said, sorry, back to the testing. So,
Okay.
the testing score needs to go on the CCP application if the student does not have a high school transcript. Is that correct?
That is such a good question. We both look stumped, don't we? So generally speaking, College Credit Plus leaves it up to the colleges to determine if a student is CCP eligible.
Right.
That's why that college letter of admission is part of the application process. I gave Sarah that look because I'm not sure if there's a place in the OHID account for you to upload supplemental documents.
I don't think there is.
Melanie thinks not. So the test scores are typically not given to the state of Ohio. They're given to the college, and the college determines eligibility.
That OHID account is managed by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, so it's not managed by the universities. So that's why there are separate sets of documents that need to go through the OHID uploading process as opposed to what would be submitted to the university.
Excellent. Okay. My next question is a little bit more specific. So my son is in 10th grade and only received 4 CCP credits this year. He is in private school. Is there any way to appeal for more credits if you got a low number of credits, or is paying out of pocket the only option after taking the 4 credits?
Paying out of pocket
is
your only option. The number of credits that students are awarded varies from year to year and is based upon the number of students who apply for funding. So as long as more students are applying for funding, then the number of credits awarded will be less, because at this point the budget is not being enhanced.
No, the budget was finalized last July 1st. So when they have to work with a finite pot of money, and it will depend on how many applications are received.
The good news is that colleges typically reduce tuition if you have to pay out of pocket. So Cedarville reduces our undergraduate tuition by about 80%, and it's only $185 per credit hour to pay on your own for a course.
Awesome. So the other question about OHID, is it unique by student or unique by family?
It is unique by family. So once you have established an OHID account, you will use that for the rest of the time that you have students in school. You can submit a new application for an individual student annually, and you can add other students to that account. Remember, that account is the parent's account, not the student's account.
Okay. Good clarification.
Can we clarify on the privacy issue and the privacy of data? Once the student is enrolled, the parents typically don't have access to school records through the university. Is that correct?
Now, that is a great question, Melanie. So there's this little thing called FERPA. It's the federal, Yes, it is the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And what it says is that once your student enrolls in college classes, their privacy rights transfer from the parent to the student. And so the student will be responsible for communicating on their own with their professors, with the college, with their academic advisor. Now, at Cedarville, you know, we believe parents are the most important part of a student's education when they're young. So we encourage students to talk with their families. We encourage them that if they want to include a parent on a phone call, that they do that. But if the parent reaches out to us and asks a question, then we have to hold up the little FERPA flag and get the student involved.
Good clarification. Next question, does submitting your application early assure more funding, first come, first served, or will you get funding no matter what?
I wouldn't say you get funding no matter what. Well, maybe they do, because they will take the number of applications. Shelley, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think priority is given because applications are turned in early. Priority may be given if your student is a senior as opposed to a freshman.
Right. So, Melanie, you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter if you apply on February 1st at 12:01 a.m. or on April 1st at 4:59 p.m. You have the same chance of getting funding. As long as your application is complete, that is something we hear from the state, that sometimes families don't submit all the documentation. Those applications are just thrown out. Applications not submitted on time can't happen because the application closes. And applications where the student doesn't meet the criteria, those applications are also omitted from the pot. So once all applications are submitted and the state has culled out the ones that are not eligible or qualified, then the rest of the applications are separated by grade level. And so the first funding round goes to the seniors. They get 4 credit hours. Then to the juniors, who get 4 credit hours. Then to the sophomores, and all the way down to 7th grade, as long as they don't run out of money. If they get to the end of 7th grade and haven't run out of funding dollars yet, they go back to the seniors and start awarding in allotments of 8 credit hours. And then if every senior gets 8 credit hours, they go to the juniors and give them 4. And this just goes on and on until the money is done.
I had a question that came into my head and it just went right back out the other side.
We'll come back to you.
Thank you.
All right, so a follow-up question about paying out of pocket. With regard to paying for more classes other than what was awarded for CCP, are those paid classes, $180, $85 per credit hour, are they considered dual enrollment or college credit?
Well, dual enrollment is also college credit. So I think you're asking, is it dual enrollment or college credit only? And that is up to the parent.
Yep.
You know, the way the state has written the CCP law says that there are 3 ways that you can pay. CCP option A, which is parent paid but falls under CCP. CCP option B, which is state paid and is dual credit. And then there's something that they eloquently call not CCP. And so if it is a not CCP course, you can count that either way.
Good question. All right, next up, is there a gap with public school CCP funding and private and homeschooling funding? From what I've heard, you get 30 credits automatic, like if attending public school.
So the way the public school funding works is that a student gets 30 credits per hour. That doesn't mean 30 college credits. That means 30 credits. Now, those could be college credits, but if your student is taking any courses at the high school, each 1 credit hour high school course is assigned 3 credits and subtracted from that 30 credit hour total.
Okay, good clarification. All right, so this one is about someone who moved into Ohio, which is exciting. So my daughter
Welcome.
Welcome. We hope you like the snow. My daughter is currently enrolled in Cedarville's dual enrollment, but we were not Ohio residents until the past fall, so we were not eligible for CCP funds for this current academic year. Where would I go for her college acceptance letter to include with her application this year? I can't find her letter, and I suspect it got lost in the move.
If your student has already taken a Cedarville course, then in late January, they will receive an email at their Cedarville account with something called a letter of good standing. And you can use that instead of your letter of admission to Cedarville.
Excellent. So we had a late joiner, but she just wanted to ask, can my 8th grader enroll online? She says it says 7th grade. So is 8th grade applicable?
We do have a very few 8th graders who are eligible to enroll. Statewide, I believe that the number is less than 0.5% of students are in 7th or 8th grade who participate in CCP. But if your student meets our admission criteria, we would be more than happy to review their application and accept them to our program.
With keeping in mind that maturity clause, do you think they're ready for college?
That's a really good question. And I would come about this maybe more generally than the questioner is looking for an answer, because free sounds good. But I think from a parent's perspective, I think you have to look at, A, are they academically prepared? Because if they're not and they fail the course, you would be responsible for repaying the state those dollars. There's a financial consequence for not passing a class that's been paid for by the state. We know that all of our resources belong to the Lord. We know that He knows what your needs are before you even ask. That's one of my favorite scriptures in Matthew 6, that your Heavenly Father knows what you need before you even come to Him. But He still wants us, of course, to come to Him and have that conversational relationship with Him. CCP is an opportunity, but I think you have to look at academic preparation, social emotional maturity, but you also have to look at spiritual maturity, which was why this setting, this conversation with Cedarville is so important, because even if you're considering a different school, your child will not, even if they're taking an online class, they will be given group assignments. Your child will be doing things external to the home environment that you will not be involved in at all. And I think there has to be a level of spiritual readiness for that, because even if a student joins into courses or participates in a state university or a Christian school, at whatever level in their adult life, there are universities, we know, there are universities in the world now that are presenting significant challenges to students in terms of their core faith, the precepts that they have been taught by their parents and through their churches and synagogues. So just be cautious. Make sure your student, I think, you have to make sure that they're also spiritually ready to participate with older students with mature curricular subjects.
You know, a very wise man who heads up our career services department uses the phrase, better ready than early. So I'm just going to say that and let that kind of mic drop with you for just a minute. Early and free are not good things if your student isn't ready. Ready spiritually, as Melanie said, ready academically. Keep in mind, these are college level classes. These are not high school classes. And if your student, for instance, hasn't completed Algebra 2, they're not ready for college math. If they haven't completed the equivalent of a mid-high school level English class, they're not ready for the writing that will be required in college coursework. There's also the maturity level. How do they handle setbacks? how are they going to handle when they have to email a professor and say, oops, there was a problem? And so, in my opinion, students are often better off waiting until they are ready.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. We have 4 more questions, and then we're going to conclude. So, with regard to the online classes, so this is a Shelley question with regards to curriculum, is there a way that tests are proctored? Is there a program students must download on their computer?
For some courses, yes.
Okay. Awesome.
And I would also say if your student needs to take a test to gain admission and they choose to take the AccuPlacer test, those are proctored through a webcam online by the College Board. So your student has to have a webcam, and they also need to have a student ID or some form of identification.
Awesome. Another question for Shelley. Does Cedarville frown on official looking, or does Cedarville look down upon homemade transcripts that were not created with an official service template or accredited?
Oh, absolutely not. And so, as I said earlier, if you can create your transcript organically, that's just fine. We have a very simple template on our webpage. I sometimes see that families wrestle with pre-made templates because that's why we didn't put our kids in public school in the first place, right? Because we don't fit the templates always.
Good answer. All right, 2 more questions. Does Cedarville require ACT, SAT, or equivalent for admission? Are we test optional?
We are test optional. What that means is if your student meets our transcript requirement, they can be admitted without a test score. If your student does not meet our transcript requirement, then they will need to provide test scores for admission. Even after they're admitted, they may be asked to provide test scores if they want to enroll in English or math courses.
All right, last question. Do awarded credits carry over if not used? For example, if awarded 5 credits but take a 4-credit course, what happens to that leftover credit?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if they're taking a course, signing up for a summer course, they could, and they drop it, they could take a course with the same monies that were awarded in the fall and spring, correct?
Yes, if you drop the course within those first 15 days, your funding is still eligible, and you can use that in fall or spring. But you cannot roll over.
From year to year, there's no rollover.
That's right. The other important piece to know about that is that CCP will not partially fund a course. So if you were awarded 4 credit hours and you take a 3 credit hour course and you want to take a second 3 credit hour course, you have to pay for all 3 credits out of pocket. CCP won't fund just 1 hour.
But for those additional 2 hours on a 3-credit course, Cedarville would provide a discounted per hour for the other 2 hours?
No, they have to pay for all 3 hours.
Right, but the per hour charge that you were mentioning before would
is
be
$185 per credit hour.
So it's less than you wouldn't be paying full price for the other 2 hours.
Right.
Okay, that concludes our questions. Do you have a final thought that you'd like to share with our viewers from each of you?
I'm just very excited that all of you are participating today. I know we had, 120 people register for this Facebook Live event. So that tells me that parents are looking for answers in terms of their high school experience and being able to maximize the College Credit Plus program. So thank you for your questions. I would just encourage you to continue asking questions. You have CHIO's email address, you have Cedarville's email address as a part of the materials that are provided through this session. So just keep going, and God bless you for what you're doing for your children. It's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. I would say College Credit Plus is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for families when the student is ready. But it is a complex process to navigate, and so I encourage you to reach out to us with any questions that you have.
Yep. Excellent. All right, so that's my final plug. I wanted to share some links with you. So first off, if you would like to learn more about dual enrollment, which would be the broader name for College Credit Plus that we were talking today, we have a link. It's Cedar.to, that is cedar.to, cedar.to/CCP info. And if you fill out that form, we would gladly send you more information. In addition to that, you'll see the links and the emails on screen. So if you have specific questions about your student and your situation, our advisors and CHIO's family would be more than happy to help you navigate this process. So thanks for joining us today. If you found this helpful, we would love it if you shared it. Share the link with your friends or share it on your Facebook page. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoy this snowy afternoon here in Ohio.